Imagine IT, we're going to skip over as due to the weather, they weren't able to get down here today. So we're going to item B, the PEC Consulting Assistance. And Ted, are you going to start a presentation with us?
Yeah, and Mr. Mayor, City Council members, I kind of just want to, I guess, kick this off with just a little bit of a look back and see where we've been. Over the last 4 years, city, of course, has experienced unprecedented growth and development. The growth is not just a number to us. It translates to a complex and detailed process for each project. Starts with rezoning, preliminary platting, final platting, legal agreements need to be reached, engineering of infrastructure, petitions, authorizing resolutions, financing, as you know, numerous city council meetings. Then you finally get to construct the thing. And then about 1,000 different inspections. Then you find a unique problem. There becomes problem solving with solutions, fixes. Then they want a meter to be set. New accounts, you got move-ins, move-outs, and then all of that is capped off by a special assessment process. To say the least, the journey from a hayfield to a residential area is pretty demanding on everyone in the city hall. Just one development requires a collaboration of various departments: planning and zoning, engineer, legal, finance, and more. Now multiply this by about 14 different developments or phases that we've experienced in the last 4 years. The majority of these tasks fall on about very few positions within our city. You have Keith, our planning and zoning expert, and our city engineer, and a mixture between the city manager, city attorney, and finance. As we've been talking a lot over the last few years, the word efficient has really lost its meaning on me. I think effective is what we need to be striving for, and what I'm going to take to my next career opportunity here in Bel Aire. What steps are we making to become more effective with our options? I think we've already begun this journey. December was a big month for us, becoming more effective with approving a new ERP system, providing the tools and enhancing the service delivery of our staff. Phase 2 for me kind of began in the 1st of January when Ethan, our new building inspector and trainee, is working now with Keith Price to help his overloaded job task, and really what free time he has to develop some more. So we have an apprentice under Keith able to take on some of those lower building inspections, also learn continuously. But as you know, this process, it'll take time to bear fruit. And that's kind of where, speaking of time, I think anybody in a leadership position has read Peter Drucker's Effective Executive. It's one of the bellwethers. And his big thing is know thy time. And he really points out that knowledge workers such as city engineers, planning and zoning, they need blocks of time to be productive. If you look at Anne's schedule, take her for example, you'll have 30 minutes of free time and then an hour meeting, 30 minutes of free time, an hour meeting, 30 minutes of free time, 30-minute meeting, 30 minutes of free time, maybe you'll grab a piece of lunch. Then you got to go to Woodlawn. That what you get day after day is no blocks of time being reserved for the large engineering reviews and different capacities that she needs as far as being effective project management, and not just for individual developments, but citywide projects. I'm dealing with the same thing, but that's kind of what my job entails. Ty, I know, does as well. But that's really when I was thinking about the problems we're looking at. And Keith, he has an inspection, 30 minutes of free time, another inspection, and you see where all that's happening. That really leads me to phase 3 and the next step towards enhancing our effectiveness within the city. We need to address these gaps in our planning and zoning and engineering processes. We need to create necessary blocks of time for efficient project management. And again, not just individual developments, but in citywide projects. So tonight we're discussing a service agreement with PEC. The action provides a clear scope of work and allows us to tap into the specialized services needed for, be it engineering reviews, street planning, high-level planning issues. The benefit to this approach is clear. Instead of expanding our workforce in specialized areas, we can strategically outsource tasks, freeing up staff time to focus on priority areas of theirs. And most importantly, to work above the constant tide of urgent demands. I firmly believe that this step is not just a solution, but a necessary evolution of our city's administration. It'll enable the city to breathe, plan, and operate more effectively, ensuring that city's continued growth and is in a positive light. So what you have before you tonight, and I have Mike Kelsey here and Kristen Zimmerman to talk a little bit about PEC's experiences, what they do. But that's really, to me, the true reason why this is before you and will be before you the next future council meeting is we need to free up some blocks of time for Ann and for Keith and for Maria, because a lot of times when stuff gets overlooked, it becomes a legal issue, and Maria gets involved, or Ty and myself have to get involved. And that's what we're looking at, is tapping into some experts and able to do some of those tasks for us, so that we can, again, be more effective while not growing by 3 or 4 or 5 different members. So we'll stand for questions, and I'll let Kristen or Mike talk a little bit about what they're envisioning this relationship being. I will note, why is PEC here? Last year or recently, we conducted a thorough process to select ownership rep for Integra if need be. This is not it, but we interviewed several different firms that do this certain issue, and PEC emerged as a clear choice for both the city council and staff. So that's why they're here tonight as well.
So basically, in a nutshell, what this is about, to have this master services agreement so that we can scale our resources a little better and have better engineering support and other type of planning resource report, even possibly even inspections if need be, to help scale those where we're needing to add people without adding people. It might be a little more expensive on a per hour basis, but you're not adding a whole person that you don't really need to add a whole person for. You just need to add a certain project and get it done.
Correct.
Is that
and a lot of
analysis
this is great too, because they have a staff full of experts in a certain subject, that it's kind of like, you're a doctor. We maybe employ a family physician, but they have surgeons. They have, all elements of health at their disposal, and we can piecemeal it. So it's actually not only does it alleviate that problem, but it gives us that expert advice and recommendations versus maybe just hiring another person and being a general practitioner.
Mr. Mayor,
Amber.
I just want to make sure I understand. So the $10,000 a month, is it basically like a pot of money, and as you use services per hour, whoever you need that month, you're going to draw down the $10,000, and if you go over, you can pay extra?
We're pretty flexible on how we set this up. We started with $10,000 because that's what we thought it would be about. The thought was that was just a $10,000 lump sum per month. But we think that's about what it's going to take to do the GIS, the planning, and the engineering as part of this. So that's a guess. We also talked about looking at this in a couple months, seeing if that number's right, if we need to lower it or raise it, probably lower it. But that's what we're thinking right now. Yeah. But we are flexible. We work for, I'll give you a little bit of background. We work for a lot of cities. I have a history. I was at Valley Center for 25 years as city engineer there, our representative. We structure our agreements with every city differently because every city is different and they have different needs. So this is unique. What you see in front of you is unique. It's not the same as any other city we deal with. But that's also getting into it. None of us know exactly what we're getting into. Best guess right now.
I'm not sure I completely understand the lump sum structure.
It's called
Um,
it's a retainer, basically.
And so the deliverables that are listed, I guess there's not a lot of detail around each of these deliverables. Typically, when I would see an agreement that said, we're going to do this scope of work for this fixed price, it gets very detailed, because if we as the customer start asking for stuff that you weren't thinking you were going to provide, and we're not in agreement on what all are we going to get for our $10,000, then there can be some conflict there. There's kind of the high level details of what's maybe included for that $10,000. I'm surprised it's not maybe more like hourly based, time and materials type of an agreement.
Yeah.
What's the thought there?
Yeah, the thought is that we think we will be spending the 10,000 is what we think. Right now, what are we doing on GIS and planning right now?
Yeah, so I would say right now we're right around 5,000 on average over the last year or so. So we've been doing these on-call planning and on-call GIS. So for example, under the GIS work, we've gotten the water and sewer layers updated, to building the master layer for the city, and then adding on all the infrastructure through the information that's coming up through the new subdivisions that have been built. So that was a big accomplishment to kind of get the city's master layer for water and sewer up and current. And then under the on-call planning, that has been sort of a mismatch of things. We've done quite a bit of grant writing, got the city the sidewalk on 53rd, as well as the KDOT bridge grant to cover the bridge on Oliver, just south of 45th. So that was a big effort under the sort of the planning work. So that's what we kind of had been structured.
Yeah, and I think we've been spending our costs are about $5,000 per month with the current on planning and GIS on call that we're doing. So that's basically why we did that. We thought, well, it's going to be about 10,000 is what we're thinking.
So if I'm understanding you correctly, you said you used the term retainer, so I'll just
Yep.
continue to use that term. So if we would only spend 7,000 this month against that retainer, then you'd have the 3,000 carry over to the next month. The
Yeah.
next month's pool would be 13,000.
Yeah, if we spend 12 or 14 the next month, it'll equal out.
Then you balance that out.
Yeah, that's kind of the thought. Yeah, I don't know. We can look at other arrangements, but I'd get into the details of the scope of it. So basically, anything your staff's going to ask us, we're going to do. I can pretty much say that engineering, planning, or GIS related. We did put a stipulation in there, 4 hours, I think, but we were even talking like, well, if it's 6 hours, that's not a big deal. That's just kind of a benchmark for us. And that's really more that if there's something that's going to take more effort, like if you want a plan developed, I don't know. If
Or
you want a
engineering
speed
design.
study done, that's going to take us counters and we got to put counters
Counters,
out, that's going to take more effort, then we'd want a separate work order for that.
So every month somebody's going to get like a bill that says we spent this number of hours on this and this number of hours on
Yes.
this and this number of hours on
Of a
this.
T&M
Yes.
And
type
that's
approach.
how we'll kind of know that we're getting how much we're paying and what services we're actually getting. Is that
Yeah.
accurate?
Yes.
Yeah, so Ted and Ty, one of them, depending on what it is, one of them will say, hey, you're only spending 5 hours out here and charging us $10,000. Well, then we're going to redo this. We're going to update that. We'll either go hourly or we'll reduce that retainer fee.
So
Right.
is this, have Ty or Ted, have you thought through how you manage this so that we know what work orders are authorized and we don't just have freewheeling of, oh, we got this new service contract, so all 50 employees can call up PEC and get help?
Yeah, and that's the difficult part. Like where Justin's going is, typically you say for X amount we get some, it's defined. The issue is we don't know from month to month what we're going to need. So, for example, we'll get a call from Greater Wichita Partnership that they've got some company that wants to locate in the Sunflower Commerce Park. And they need to know water pressures and rates and that kind of stuff. So they did the model for us, so we'll call them up and say, hey, we need this information. And so,
8 hours.
yep. And yeah, because they always want to turn around in 2 days or a day. seems like. And so then they'll assign whatever engineer, and that engineer's fee is 150 an hour. And so then he'll get us that information, or she'll get us that information. And then we may not need that type of information for 2 months. And then someone else will come in and say, we'll need that. So, but then like Kristen, the, WAMPO is working on, like the mayor has asked us to have a whole list of what street improvements that may need to be made over the next several years. So that's in the plan. Chris, we have to have a dollar amount. You know, we just can't say, well, these are the roads. They want to know how much. So then we say, Kristen, okay, because Kristen used to work at WAMPO.
Yep.
And so she knows all about WAMPO. So we call her and say, Kristen, help us to get this list together, and then have your engineers look at the most recent bids of some roads and tell us what the costs are. And so then they help us. And again, that's a project we're doing now. We won't need to do that for another couple of years. But it's taken some time.
So the 10,000. So the 10,000 a month. Then it seems like that's probably designed to kind of spread out the peaks and valleys
Yep.
of demand for services.
Yep.
Is that something that is designed to benefit the city of Bel Aire, because we need that budgetary consistency looking at TED, and that helps us? Or is that something that's designed to make the relationship better for PEC, because they can kind of plan that and know how the revenue's coming? Is it mutually beneficial? How did we arrive at this as the right structure?
Truthfully, that's kind of what's Peaceville. We'll approve a project and go, and they'll assign a project number, and then we'll have an invoice for that project number, and then something else will pop up. So it becomes a lot more streamlined on my end when we have this type of agreement, and budgetary wise, very consistent for me as we continue to go into this type of arrangement, because simply staff can't keep up. So we're going to have to throw a lifeline every once in a while. And this is what allows us to keep that constant budgetary constraint and estimation.
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Dean.
I had a question for Mike. I have a couple questions actually, Mike. So I have heard some concerns. Some citizens have reached out and they're kind of curious about why we would need an MSA. And I think Ted did a great job of kind of teeing it up for why a city would be interested in this. But from your perspective, just kind of explain the number of communities that you've worked with, the staffs of those communities, if they have a city engineer, public works director, or not.
So
Just give us some background of why we would need this,
yeah,
like another city would.
Yeah, I would. So I'll go largest to smallest. So the largest city we deal with is Garden City. We're their city engineer. The smallest, I mean, we have Keachai, we have Colwich, Medicine Lodge, Wellington. So all sorts of different cities, all different structures. We also have on-calls with the city of Wichita. We're not their only engineer. We're one of 3 on-calls. We have 3 different on-calls with Wichita. So I think every city's different. You have you have gigantic growth here. So your needs are day to day. In fact, part of what we need to do is get to know you guys. We know you pretty well. We want to go to staff meetings. We want to be in meetings. We want to know what's going on. We want to be there to advise and help Ann for sure. I think your needs are different than a Colwich. Colwich doesn't have anything really going on. We go to a council meeting a month at Colwich. We don't really do much more than advise them when they need it. I see you guys more like what I dealt with in Valley Center. They have constantly subdivisions going on. They have 3 or 4 contractors at any one time working in Valley Center. I see that you guys are similar to them, where you need a little bit more day to day as you go. But I think that our job here is we want to do what's best for you guys, 100%. We think we know how to do that because we deal with all these different cities, and I think the structure for you guys is what you need. And if it isn't, then we'll reevaluate it, and we'll figure out a different way to do it. But I think one of the things Ted mentioned was you have one engineer. She cannot know everything about everything, guaranteed. Streets, drainage, wastewater treatment, water treatment, water lines, sewer lines, everything. You can't be an expert in all those areas. She can call us, any person at PEC, she'll going through us or anyone else, she can get answers on anything. I mean, that's the bottom line.
Yeah, one of the things I was kind of wanting you to say is, I mean, engineers provide. And,
Tell me what I want to say, please.
one of the things I think that you do provide services as a city engineer for a
Yeah.
lot of communities.
Mhm.
This is not that. You're
No,
going to be
no,
augmenting
no.
and supplementing the staff
Yeah.
as they need,
I'm sorry.
as
Right.
directed by the staff, as directed by this. I want some comfort. And I think citizens want to understand, how does this play with our current city engineer, and how does it help our city accomplish our goals? And I think,
Yeah.
I understand it, but I just want them
I
to hear.
I didn't get back to that. I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
was rambling a little bit. Garden City is a good example of that. So Garden City they had a city engineer on staff. They have a utilities director that we work for. We report to them. We go to Garden City once a week. We have a staff member go out there. So it's different. It's not city engineer. It's
Yeah.
really a support to the city engineer. I mean, that,
And I would
Yeah,
just
go ahead.
add this, in no way binds the city to, in terms of its engineering needs. It is sort of staff support, Ted call, hey, we've got a site selector. We need you to run the model. We run the model. We tell you, how much water, sewer demand, the city can support for this particular development, things like that. But in no way does it tie the hands of the council or the manager in terms of new projects or new ideas. It's not like some sort of an exclusive arrangement where you don't have control over who you want to hire for getting your different projects done.
Well, and if I can give you a perfect example, is 53rd Street. We've talked about 53rd Street, and our goal was to have it bid in November, and it's now going to be bid end of the month. And why is that? That is because it took a little longer for Garver to get it engineered, but they had it to us by the 1st of December. But our city engineer did not have the time to review the plans, because that's her job. That's the city's job, is to review every plan that comes to us to ensure that it's meeting our standards. Because she was out on Woodlawn, because she was trying to review subdivision plans that were coming in, that she's been working with Garver on 45th Street. And what we're seeing is that you have priorities, 53rd Street. We're all hearing about it needs to be done. But every day we all come in and have to put out a fire. And so we have to decide, okay, what's going to be our priority today? Well, 53rd Street just kept getting dropped. And so finally I said, Ann, we got to get this done. Send it to PEC. So it took them 2 weeks and they had it reviewed, and we're ready it'll be out the end of the month for bid. But that's an example of, we have a city engineer that doesn't have the time to follow up on the priorities that you guys have set. And that's where we need them to step in and help us.
And then the other thing I had, the other specific question I had was about the Integra agreement, the owner's rep. How do these two work together? I'm a little concerned with, if we're using them for owner's rep on all of our big projects, if Integra happens, and then having an MSA, they feel like they're in the same space a little bit. How does that look? And I don't know if that's Ty or Ted or Mike, but
Yeah, because when we first met with them, and that was the reason we did meet with PEC, was because we knew we were lacking, and we knew we needed the assistance. We knew that the governing body picked them as the owner's rep, but that's not what our goal was with this agreement. It's to fill in the gaps and to help us where we're at on daily operations. If Integra and when Integra comes, then that owner's rep will be something different and will be different people and a different role on that project than the day-to-day operations that this agreement is looking at. Because we'll still need, if Integra comes, that's just going to add to the already swamped that we are today. It's only going to add to that. But there'll be different people and different actions as an owner's rep than what they're doing with this.
Yeah, we have a whole different group that does that work.
Thank you.
So $10,000 a month, that's a pretty significant expense. The obvious alternative to that I'm sure we considered was hiring another engineer for staff. Why is this the preferred alternative over adding another engineer on staff?
You or me, Ty? I felt like we went down that route, and it's really hard to find someone in this labor market with all that type of expertise. What we have, frankly, we're going to spend that amount of money on the exact same position. We're going to hire that's going to be a general practitioner. One person.
200 people.
And I think I know we're laser focused on engineering, but Kristen's done so much already for us. I can't imagine having her on call when, to be able to ask questions about this grant, that grant, to have questions answered about planning, certain planning issues. PEC is currently doing our master plan. We're in the middle of that. And that's kind of where I see a lot of value as well as Trevor. I've already contacted him a few times with follow-up questions about the water and sewer master study. All this stuff integrates into economic development and integrates into the day in, day outs of what the city, even administration, deals with. And it's really important to me to have that expert on the other side, because we can talk to anybody, but if we have a weight of an expert on the other side, we know we're in the right position. So that's what I'm more excited about with doing something like this agreement versus adding another single person that works 9 to 5 and goes home.
Can you speak to the value of the grants we've been able to get by using PEC versus what you think we might have been able to get had we not known PEC?
The beauty and the big one would be base grant 2.
And that's
4.2.
Just want some justification here for continuing this.
So yeah,
If they're actually
$4.2
bringing
million
in more money
base
than
grant
they're
2
spending.
was done with the assistance of PEC. I'm not sure what the bike pad is. 250,000.
That's the weapon.
The Wampo one. Mhm.
So we've got to do the other 20%.
Yeah.
And the bridge we were talking about.
The bridge was, I'll have to read,
Around 500.
500,000, something like
Okay,
that.
so spending 100,000, we brought in $1.5 million or something. Is that what I'm hearing roughly?
No, you're up over $5 million.
$5 million. Okay,
Yeah.
I can't add. I lost the
We're
first
crossing
number,
our
so
fingers on 45th. We'll find out this year.
That was going to be my comment. Just talking with Ty, is we just understandably, because every day is like a fire drill, real fires going on, and we have missed out on opportunities and things like that. And then I assume it's going to be kind of a two-way street where you guys are going to have expertise and might point us in the direction of a grant you see for us that Ann won't have to come to you. You'll be bringing opportunities. Is that right?
Yep, that's how we like to do it, is just kind of get a list of your priority projects and then identify grants or other financing options to put toward it. So you can kind of be in the driver's seat instead of feeling kind of reactionary in terms of like, oh, here's this grant. Do we have something for it? You want to be driving, these are your priorities. Let's find a way to pay for them.
Overall, I'm supportive of this. I want to move forward with it. I do have a couple of specific things that I'd like to see changed in the agreement itself, around the work product section. I was looking at that, and it's pretty restrictive on what the city can do with work that PEC does for us. And I think as a city, we need to be able to take drawings or work product from many of the engineers that do stuff with us and have those here at City Hall, so that if 5 years from now we need a different engineering firm to leverage that work product, they can do so, and that we're not contractually prohibited from doing that, instead of expecting the taxpayers to pay somebody else to start from scratch. So I'd like to see that work product section adjusted a little bit. And then in the insurance area, I'd like to see it called out that insurance is maintained that's at least to the value of whatever projects PEC is doing for us, so that the insurance value is high enough to cover whatever projects they may do for us.
So we're not going to make an agreement to a contract tonight, but good input. I just want to make sure.
It's in our
everybody understands.
packet, so I
Yeah,
wanted
it's
to
in our
address
packet.
it.
So that's good input. I appreciate that. Just want to make sure everybody knows that we're not approving a contract tonight. That has to be done in a regular meeting.
Yep.
Now, I do have something that popped in my head. So say we have an engineering a request for engineering services proposal out. Is that going to be something that PEC is able to propose on and engineer in addition to overviewing plan? How's that going to work? How do you deal with the conflict of interest that's going to be created if PEC were to propose and engineer something? Obviously, they can't review their only engineer work. So how do you deal with that?
We're going to ask on each project.
Okay.
Yeah, if something's going out and we're interested in it, we're going to be talking to see if there is a conflict.
Gotcha.
If we normally we've kind of focused on the city side of things. We've minimized our development, or especially residential type development, working with developers. We still work with some, but a lot of times there's conflicts of interest there. We always bring those up to the city. If we're working in the county or for Wichita or Keachai and there's potential conflicts there too, we'll bring it up.
Yeah, and there's lots of examples here. I would definitely want to reiterate what Mike said, that, it's really the city's preference on how you want to handle this. There's, sometimes you can put in provisions where, we could, design something up to 30% to save costs for the city and then pass it on to another firm to the balance of it. Or it could be something like, one of our engineers at one of our other offices is the project manager and kind of overseeing the work from that separate office. So we've done things like that, and even in other cities where that has come up. So but we're, I would say, uber aware of this.
And we want to do the projects. We don't want to design the projects.
So I assumed that. So my follow-up question would be, if you did propose and we allowed, is the way you would handle it have you handled it such that you hired another firm to do what you would have normally
we have
done?
before. Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to understand that process that we may have to go through if we were to move forward with something like this. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions or concerns with this concept? Well, I appreciate the information and thank you. And we will obviously have to look at this at the city council meeting, but my sense is that everybody's in agreement with this. We just need to work out some of the terms.
Well, if you think of anything else, just listen.
Yeah, we're glad to get those terms adjusted in time for your meeting.
Okay.
And I do have this folder, just has some sheets about all the different services we offer. So I'm glad to just pass that around. If you're not already familiar.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Okay, the next issue on the agenda is a police replacement vehicle. I thought we just replaced 2 vehicles. It took us 2 years to replace 2 vehicles or something like that. I don't remember.
We had to go a while before we got the ones we just got. So
Right.
we have some vehicles that are quickly approaching their end of life. The police cars usually go just a little over 80,000. And then when they hit 80,000, the cost to repair goes way up. It escalates quickly. And we've seen that. We ran a study a few years ago, and that was certainly true. We've got 2 vehicles out in the lot right now that have transmissions that we can't really drive them for anything. And we're going to be getting rid of those. But we have an opportunity now to get a couple of vehicles, some Dodges. I will say I've been driving one for a little while now since it's been upfitted, and it's nice. I think it's nicer than the Fords. I want to reaffirm that we want to move away from the Fords. We still have no idea when the Fords that we didn't take from TCS, when they'll be in for whoever's going to get them. later on because they're still not done.
That's unbelievable that they're that
Yeah.
way, but I
Yeah,
get it.
So that's what,
Wow.
12, 13, 14, 15 months or
Right.
so that order's been in place and it still hadn't been filled. So during the pandemic, we, of course, all experienced supply shortages and the chain was broken. Dodge has been able to get their vehicles out. I told you last time I was here for the other two vehicles, these we can touch. TCS did us a favor by working with Parks Motors to reserve a couple for us. We didn't come to you at the end of last year because we wanted to make sure it was coming out of this equipment replacement fund for this year. We're in need of a couple. Our cars, we've got two cars that are up in the 70,000 range. They're going to quickly get to the 80,000 so that we can cycle those out and get these two vehicles, hopefully. The other thing with that is if we wait on getting these two vehicles, I don't know how soon we will be able to get another two vehicles. And then if we wait for 2024s, we're pretty much guaranteed that they're going to go up $10,000 each. So I really don't like that. I'd really prefer to get the vehicles now. We've worked, like I said, we've worked out a deal with Parks. They've got two vehicles. They've been holding them for 45 days. They're really wanting to get them off their lot because they like to cycle those vehicles on and off the lot, and that's their business. So I will probably call John tomorrow, the rep out at Parks, to let him know the feeling of the group as far as whether we're going to get the vehicles or not. Because if we don't take them, they're going to go to somebody else immediately.
So those cars, once we agree to buy them, they have to go and be fitted for the equipment that you need on, right?
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up. That was next.
Okay.
So TCS has helped us acquire these vehicles. We can get them and they'll store them for us for a time, for some months, maybe, until we're able to cycle these two vehicles that are approaching 80,000 out of the fleet. And then they'll bring those over and upfit them then. Not right now, but when we need them. And we don't have to pay storage to TCS. They're just going to put them in the corner of one of their warehouses and keep them for us. And that's an opportunity that we have now. We may not have that opportunity later on to get the 2023s.
So you're proposing we go on and purchase the vehicles and store them
Yes.
for a time until you are ready to cycle out one or two of these other vehicles and then get them fitted and into service.
Right.
Takes about 30 days to upfit them, if I remember right.
About 2 weeks.
2 weeks?
That's what they've been running now.
Okay.
Yeah. They've got a lot of business coming in through the door. So we're having to fit in between everybody else. And it takes about 2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah. I do want to point out that on page 2 of my report, I gave you a total for one vehicle. I didn't give you a total for both vehicles.
Right.
So that 57,548 is going to be 115,096 for both vehicles. But again, that's money that's allocated already through the equipment replacement fund. And I think we're ready to make the purchase and hold those vehicles until we need them instead of paying 20,000 extra for maybe 2024s. We can't find vehicle.
I know it's just based on mileage as you hit that 80,000 mile mark, but roughly how often, I know we were a little backlogged because of COVID and getting inventory with these last two vehicles, but when would you roughly expect to need another vehicle after, if we purchase these two?
What we try to do, to answer that, what we try to do is balance out the mileage. So like I had a 2019 until very recently, so it only had 47,000 miles on it. So I was putting on roughly 12,000 miles a year, whereas we've got two 2020s that have roughly 75,000 miles apiece. So when what we call hot seated, the one shift uses it, the next shift uses it, the next shift uses it, the seat just doesn't cool off. So when they're hot seated, the mileage goes up faster. Administrative use, the mileage doesn't go up as fast. So like my car, my old car has been moved out to the patrol fleet so they can put more miles on it. But we also have a 2020 that has just over 10,000 miles. That's the supervisor car, and they don't drive as much as I do. So that vehicle is going to be cycled back out into the patrol fleet also. So we try to balance that out. To answer your question, we would probably maybe buy one next year, because we've got two that are going to be in the patrol fleet at 47,000, almost 48,000 miles and 51,000 miles. So if they're used in patrol, they're going to gain mileage faster. Yeah.
The hard thing about mileage is it's kind of like your own car. Doesn't usually work that way. You asked, when do you think we'll need these vehicles? It's probably when Lieutenant Fox comes to my office and said we need a new transmission. It's going to cost $7,500, and that's really what we saw in 2023. The effects of COVID. And Chief might back me up here. We had more maintenance costs in 2023 because we didn't get a car for a year and a half, 2 years through COVID. And that's kind of where your finances tend to work out a little different, is because, there for a while we had to fix the transmission because there's no cars available. If you get ahead of the game, you tend to avoid those costly repairs. And I know, yes, maybe a $7,000 transmission is not worth a $52,000 car, but when you have a fleet of 7, 8 vehicles, that tends to come to your mind as a viable option.
And though Ted mentioned the transmissions on patrol cars, and they're not abused, but we do have to sometimes drive through farm fields, down washboard roads, at higher speeds than what you would like to drive. And so, tie rod ends and spindles and brakes, they wear. And because these are pursuit vehicles, it's because sometimes we have to drive very fast. You don't want equipment failure at high speed. And so we're looking out for the safety of our employees by keeping those things rotated out and not getting too many miles on the cars before we do rotate them out.
About how long is it taking us to put 80,000 miles on a car? So we get a brand new car. Like, how long is it part of our fleet at this point?
Well, the two that have been in the patrol fleet now have been their 2020s, and they're at 75,000.
Did we buy
Roughly.
those in 2020?
We probably
2019?
bought them in 19, and we got them in 2020.
So we'll have had them around 5 years. We'll put it up, and we'll get probably some decent resale out of those because they're 5 years old with 80,000.
As long as they have a good transmission, then we do get a pretty good price on Purple Wave. Which is usually where we offload the cars.
So, Chief, you made mention of storing the cars temporarily. Or the vehicles that you're proposing temporarily? About how long do you think that? And you maybe said this. About how long do you expect that to be? And what would be the reasoning to not just trade the vehicles that you're wanting these to increase? What's the positive? Was the net benefit to us doing it this way? Is there some reason?
I just had it calculated out to 80,000, so I come and tell you we waited until 80,000, but we could upfit them sooner.
From a financial perspective, a few $100s an inch. Yeah, a lot. This fund has been already funded, and once you approve it, it'll just sit in our investment account. The outfitting cost, whatever. So not a lot of financial gain by letting them sit in a garage. However, it allows for that natural rotation. So it's from a financial perspective, if we have them sitting, we get to keep that end of the money a little longer.
So if you are able to get another 10,000 miles out of a particular car, you've extended its life basically 1/8 of what you would have if you retired
You
early.
asked about the resale. Yeah.
Right.
But a point, these cars, when we've had two that have hit right around 80,000 miles, and we've
Mhm.
started getting the transmission problems.
Okay.
So that's why
Are
maybe
these-
not a bad
Are
idea.
these the Fords?
Pardon me?
Are these the Fords or the Dodges?
Yes, the Fords.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Just curious.
And since we've got two, number 30 and 32, 30 really can't be driven right now. 32, we wouldn't take it on the highway.
So why would you put these cars in storage? Why would you not put them in service if you can't
Well-
use the car? If you got a car sitting in your fleet you can't use.
Well, those two vehicles we're not using. We've already replaced them with the last two that you allowed us to get.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
We just haven't auctioned them off yet.
Right.
Okay. You're going
Yeah.
to, you got to get that done.
Right.
Okay. All right.
And so those are kind of off the table. I keep bringing them up, but they're off the table.
All right.
We've got those two at in the 70,000 mile range that I've always considered between 80 and 100,000. So I was wanting to get up over the 80, but not too far over the 80
Mhm.
because we've seen the transmission problems creep up
Right.
and
Okay.
bite us.
Okay. Well, from my perspective, I think it's probably good to go on and buy those cars and put them in storage till you find a point that you need to put them in service. But
Appreciate that.
I don't vote on this, so just need to make sure the council is agree.
The one
what they
thing
wanna do.
that, and I kind of skirted it a little bit, I kind of need to let the guy know. I mean, I can't ask you for a vote,
No.
but if there's a feeling that we're going to get these vehicles, I have to
The
call him
consensus.
tomorrow so that we can start a process. Because
So-
what that process is that TCS is going to write them a check for the vehicles.
Mhm.
They're going to put them in our name. They don't care who they get the money from. And then when you officially vote on it, then we can pay TCS for what they've paid for the vehicles. But that secures the vehicles for us instead of somebody else getting them.
Only
It sounds like we need 2 new vehicles, and I'd say, why not just get them into the fleet? I don't see the purpose of storing them for 3 months. I guess that's what I was getting at, but
Okay.
I'd support it at some point in the future.
We may not, we move equipment from the old cars to the new cars though, so we may not have equipment to
Yeah, you have to
be
upfit
able to
first,
do
but
that.
right.
Well, we can do that. And what they do is
Process.
they strip one down and get started on one and then same process for the other one. So
Have we already stripped the 2 cars that are having the issues?
they've been partially stripped out. Yes. They still have some lights on them.
Okay.
I know we've taken the radios and the radars and stuff out.
I don't know that I have any concerns with moving forward. We tend to need to buy 1 to 2 police cars every year. And so this is kind of right on track with that trend in terms of when do you put it in or do you store them? That I don't know that I have a preference. That's up to you.
Okay.
Ms. Hamburg?
Probably do
Yep.
that.
I was going to say, I'm in support of that. And I was just going to say, it's your decision about when you put them up on auction and make that decision about resale value versus cranking out a few more miles.
Well,
You just need to know if we're in support of buying these 2.
well, we're going to have to get rid of them soon. Because
Right.
We're running out of room in the parking lot.
Next, you're gonna ask for, expand the.
But that
parking lot.
TCS
Right.
storage will give
Well,
you
the cars are
flexibility. That free
stored,
storage with
right.
TCS.
Actually, Mr. Welsh, if we can talk about a big garage.
I knew that was next.
That's not on
That'd
the
be
agenda.
Okay.
Maybe
Any other
you can
questions
get
of
that
me?
subsidized by an electric charging station. Well, what they paid for some of the ones down 400, they're talking about $1 million a piece. I think we could build a pretty decent garage.
Okay.
Anyway, yeah, basically I'm okay with the car. My only concern is why we're not waiting for a 24 and you said they're going to cost 10,000 more.
We've been told, well, these last ones were essentially, they weren't 10,000. They were 6,000 more than the last Fords what we got. But the Fords were also a little bit more than the last cars we got, the last Dodges we got. And then we've been told just to count on about 10,000 for any vehicle that we get in the future, more. For
To
the
keep
24.
escalating it, the first brand new car I ever bought was $2,400.
I'm
Brand
gonna
new.
go sit down now.
Probably early 70s.
74, I think it was. Way below pre-pandemic. Okay, very good. All right, thank you, sir. Next item and last item, I think, I don't know, we could have others, but the city Bel Aire legislative agenda. So just be aware, the state legislator went back in session yesterday, and they actually have certain hearings already on several, on certain bills, several bills, and they're off and running. Anyway, so we're a little bit behind the eight ball on putting a legislative agenda out. Ty has done a good job at putting together a summary. I don't see it in this packet that I'm looking at, but I'm not looking at the right packet, so I'll get the right one. Anyway, so I hope everybody had a chance to review that, and so it's ready to discuss those.
Well, Mayor, right off the bat, I was just going to suggest, I know we like to keep this short and sweet. I think I would be good with dropping items 6 through 11, except for number 10, to kind of shorten it and sweeten it down. I like the top ones where it really highlights local control, and I'm on board with that. But I think our practice in the past of being at about 5 seems
Yeah, it
reasonable
is.
to me.
That's normal. And that was really the intent, to just put out those and then let's talk about how do we want to pare that down? It wasn't that, oh, we want to put all those out there.
Well, I think we can easily throw out 9 and 11. It's not really relevant to our city.
I had to catch up with you. I had the wrong agenda open.
Number 9 is broadband. I think our city is well serviced by broadband, so it's not
Yeah.
an
that's
issue
not
to
a
us.
big-
I
that's-
know it's an issue to other parts of the state.
Yeah, that
And
is
the
true.
Daylight savings time thing is a federal, is it not, instead of a state level?
States do have the option to opt out of
We
them
could,
under
yes.
current law.
And you and I have talked about this in private before, that I think we should just be in a different time zone. But
Yeah.
we're all living based on a decision made in the 1800s by the railroad companies.
Yeah, anyway. I actually tell you, I had a visit with Ty Masterson about that issue and LAVTR about 3 or 4 months ago, and he thought he could get that one passed this year. Of course, he can't commit because he's only one guy, only one vote, but he's the president of the Senate as well. So, but he was hopeful that could be passed because if you do it as a trigger law, then it happens as when other states agree to it as well. And I think that in the past discussions they've had is the problem has been the Kansas City metro area, where they don't really want to have the people that live there don't want to have a time zone change when they cross the state line. Okay. Because there's a pretty significant population does that every day. And so a trigger law that says, okay, we do what Missouri does when Missouri does it, then we're in the leadership of getting that in place, so then they can take that information and Missouri can go do the same thing.
We can
Anyway.
pull in Indiana and split the state. Half of it goes to daylight savings time and half doesn't.
Yeah.
That makes it even more confusing.
Yeah, we don't need to do that. We have that issue out in Western Kansas already. Depending on what county you're in, you don't know what time zone you're in.
That I
So-
find more odd than anything. I think the whole
Yeah.
state should be in one time zone.
Yeah, I agree, but that's another issue, another decision that's been made.
But
I'm okay with not putting in here. I just wanted to give you a little background of some
Yeah.
discussions we had. The issue is you said 7 through 11, or did you say?
I suggested dropping 6 through 11, except for number 10. I want to keep the water issue in there.
Okay.
I'll ditto on that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Thank you.
That looks good to me.
Yeah, I agree.
Hospital funding. Oh, okay. Heart evaluations.
Yeah, number 5, EMS hospital funding. That's probably a good one, but our text behind that only talks about being opposed to the expansion of Medicaid. So I'm not sure that kind of underlined section matches the following description. I'm
Well,
fine with what's there. I
okay.
just wonder if it needs more context.
The reason, I'll tell you why it's listed that way. That's literally that League of Kansas Municipalities listed it. And my addition to that, although I would change it now, except from when I wrote it originally, but I've actually done a little discussion with some people. The mayor of Burlington says expansion of Medicaid is not going to save his local hospital. My sister works in Kingsley. She says it's not going to help them. So when we hear that, I'm talking to people in those rural communities. They're saying, nope, probably not going to help us if you did it. So I don't know where that discussion comes from that there's people out there saying it's going to help. And that has the risk of additional tax burden for everybody if this happens. So that's.
I know there are some EMS specific things in our area that are a problem. The wait time sometimes for ambulances, the wait times when you call 911. Those are the problems that I've heard about around here.
Yeah. I'm hoping, I don't know this, but I'm hoping those have been resolved when they got back into their new command center, because they were out of there for about 6 months while it was being refurbished. And they've been back in there for what, 3-4 months now? Is that
Yeah,
right?
but there are some ongoing training concerns,
Is
like
there?
with the fire folks and stuff. But I think it's a county issue, as far as I can tell.
Yeah.
So maybe that one should just come off. I don't know.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
fine with
it's really-
opposing the expansion of Medicaid. That's fine. I'm just wondering about the EMS hospital funding, the way that it's underlined.
Yeah. Maybe we rehead that and just say Medicaid,
Yeah.
and then that would take care of that. Okay. Well, if that's consensus of everyone, I think that's fine. Medical marijuana, I did have a discussion about that a little bit, and this is partly, and he's left now, but our chief, he said one of the issues that concerns he has with medical marijuana is that he has no way of determining the level of toxicity. If somebody's under the influence, there's not a standard for that. And so I would suggest that if we went there, and of course you're saying pull it out of here, but just give you a little background. Maybe you say, hey, you do this with the proviso that you get K-State, KU, WSU, go do some research, find out what a level of toxicity is that's considered under the influence, and how that's measured in the field, which they don't have that tool today. So that's a concern that police have in law enforcement, is they have a person under the influence and they can't measure it. How do they charge them? That's difficult for them.
Ask the
goes for
city
any
attorney
drug.
a question. On
Really
things
goes
like
for any drug.
opioids, do we have any kind of regulations on what's too much for that? Because, I mean, those get prescribed as pain meds.
Yep.
I've taken them and I've driven, and I'm not sure sometimes if I should have been driving, but
You probably shouldn't have.
Says
you
don't
know,
drive
where
on the bottle.
exactly is the level on what's safe and not? It's kind of the same problem with alcohol. We have levels for alcohol, but do we have levels for other?
The state of Kansas does not have a per se level for a prescription or marijuana, hydrocodone, things like that. Law enforcement has had to rely on tests, field sobriety tests. There are drug recognition expert officers who have additional training where they can look at the pupils, they can ask questions, look at the color of a tongue. So they're having to rely on observations because we don't have a per se level. Colorado, some states are starting to have per se levels for individuals who are operating under the influence of marijuana and those substances.
Well, that sounds more like what our priority should be, would be, instead of worrying about medical marijuana, we should be working on ways to test whether or not a person is under an influence and unsafe to drive.
Whoever comes up with that device is going to make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Speaking of driving, we don't have anything in this letter about roads, funding for roads, how all of that works. Obviously, you know, the two issues that come up in our community a lot are water and roads. We got water in there, but we've recently experienced some difficulties with how road funding works through WAMPO, and
Mhm.
it seems like there's a lot of opportunity there that would have a significant benefit to Bel Air if things were changed a little bit. I wonder if that maybe needs to be addressed in our
Regional transportation planning
letter.
or something like that.
Yeah, but certainly there is a blurb in the League of Kansas Municipalities for infrastructure and roads, the Ike funding, that it be maintained, that it be fully funded.
Right. The problem is
Uh,
WAMPA is a federal, set up as a
yeah.
federal thing and not a state.
Yeah, WAMPO is more federal, but KDOT is all over them. Okay, so
Right.
I mean, even contracts that WAMPO wants to approve need to be reviewed by KDOT
KDOT,
before they
yep.
go and approve them. So it's they're
Yeah, I guess maybe more
involved
of
in
the
it.
things that I'm thinking about are WAMPO specific.
Right.
Right.
Like one thing that I was specifically thinking about is how, the projects are bid, and you have to lock in your budget, and
Right.
then 3 years of record inflation hits, and
Then you- then you get
you've
stuck.
lost the spirit of
Yeah.
what the program was designed to do. It seems like there's some gaps in the administration of how all of that works.
Yeah.
Maybe that's WAMPO, not the state. I'm
That
not
may
sure.
be something we'd have to work at the federal level, because of the rules that WAMPO has to work under are federal rules. Most of them, they're not entirely. Okay, I think there's some state rules as well, right? So, yeah.
I mean, I agree with you, Justin. In the past, this list, we kind of included, this isn't covered, like in the past, we've said something like 254 improvements, or there has been a
Yep.
specific thing that we threw in there and said, hey, legislators, you need to focus on this. And I do feel like maybe we ought to put that in here. I don't think it hurts.
Well, put it back in.
And that's included, I think, those are mentioned up there in the body above
Oh,
the
okay.
bullet
Yeah, yep,
points.
I see that. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah, that
Just
kind
noticed
of
that.
threw me that we really had two lists going.
That's what we did last year, though. We wanted to highlight. That's exactly how we did it last year. You're right. I just didn't see them in the bullets, so that's true. There.
Maybe it would be better if that is redone as a bullet, and so that's clearer about that. I don't know.
When you put the number one by a bullet in a list, it makes it look like it's your number one priority.
Right.
When I think the way that this letter is currently structured is the number one priorities are up in the main message.
Right.
And
these are the other
highlighted.
things.
And I will tell you, when I scan this, like I'm going to assume our legislators did, I went down to number one. I kind
Yeah.
of skipped those
Me too.
paragraphs.
Me too.
Yeah. So that might be an improvement.
We could
put
either bullet it,
to
and
the
get rid of
layout.
the numbers and leave it, or talk about what the top priority is. And I don't know which one we want to do, but
Yeah, it's kind of like either
Well-
keep the top section and get rid of everything else, or keep the bottom section.
right, so we don't get lost.
Okay,
And we've got multiple items in that paragraph.
we do, but some of those already are repeated in the bullets as well.
Right, they're adjacent to at
Mhm.
least the water rights, groundwater management.
Okay.
I like just moving everything down into bullets and not numbering them. So like Justin said, and keeping the little body up at the top
So
to a minimum.
not to muddy it, but we talked about SRF earlier, or we have heard about SRF from different sources. Is there any? Do we need to mention that specifically when we're
Yes,
talking about
um,
water or funding?
State revolving fund.
State
Oh, the
revolving
state
fund, support
revolving-
of state revolving fund, and
Well, that could be added into the water discussion. I think that we need to maintain support of the state water fund.
I just didn't know how specific we wanted
Right.
this to get, but that's been
Right.
something we've heard about a little bit lately.
Well, yeah. I think that, and I appreciate Mr. Smith's comment about the issue there, and I think it is important that we keep that emphasis. The state has a serious water issue that needs to be addressed at the state level. We can't address it at our level. We can help, but we can't address it because we're running out of water statewide.
Right.
And that has to be addressed. We have to find some ways to help that. Mr. Lasher, do you think you have enough information here? We could get this letter restructured and done okay, and taking input, all the input that you had?
Yeah, I think I
Okay.
can make a good stab at it.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure you were comfortable with what has all been said, because I didn't take notes. But anyway, appreciate it. Thank you. Any other questions, discussion about this? Okay, if not, I'll move on to item 2, other issues. So are there any other issues that anybody wants to bring up for discussion tonight or maybe for future review?
Ty, if you can just briefly give residents an update. KDOT was here last week taking samples. Any further you want to say to residents?
No, because we don't have the results of the samples, but I can tell you Ann's been out most of the time with them, and it's really appreciated having KDOT here. They've brought in a whole crew from Topeka, geologists and such that do this for the whole state, and they've been pulling core samples, gathering information, looking at what they're pulling out of the core samples, and she and I feel pretty comfortable that once they get done with their analysis, we'll have and give us a report. We'll have a good understanding of what's happening, and I think it's something that council will want to consider, very seriously on what has occurred and what our next step will be. So it's been a welcomed assistance having them here, and they've been very diligent in working with us. So like I said, I don't have anything to share from the results other than they've been here for several days, taking a lot of samples, and they know what they're doing.
And one question I had, they were expected to be here through Friday and then the snow hit. Did they just speed up and get everything done
Yeah.
on Thursday? Okay.
Yep. They got everything done before the weather.
And they took samples from all 3 lanes. They didn't take samples from just one area and not
Yep.
another. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
good.
Been impressed with
Yeah.
their crew.
I'll just add to that. I drove through the day they were drilling and I was shocked. I thought I'd see one drill rig. There was like 4. And so they really were attacking it. And I think that I also really appreciate that kind of effort because I think they know sort of behind the 8 ball and we're trying to get things figured out. I was impressed. I hadn't seen that before. 4 drill rigs going all at the same time. So that's different. So appreciate them and
Very
appreciate you guys working with them.
Yeah. I really appreciate them doing that too. So, okay. And hopefully we'll see a good report here and by the end of the month, and they give us some.
Yeah, I think the secretary told us by 1st of February.
1st of
I thought he was
February is what I
hoping.
heard. So,
Yeah.
okay. Very good. We'll be meeting next Tuesday at 7:00, a regular council meeting. And if nothing else, I'll call the meeting adjourned and everybody have a good evening.